Thank you, Sir Graham, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I wish to pay tribute to all of the speakers, perhaps with the exception of the last one, for the very proactive and constructive nature on this incredibly important subject. And I think it reflects well on the brilliant opening speech of my honourable friend for Ayr, Carrick and Cumnock, who demonstrated a real passion, knowledge and interest in this area that cross-party was picked up and reflected in each and every one of those speeches. And I think those who will have listened to this debate will be encouraged at the great level of interest. It's not as if nothing else is happening in Parliament today, and it is brilliant that this has captured so much interest. And I think my honourable friend was spot on when he quoted Dame Carol Black, when she said the evidence is clear that most people with these disabling conditions want to work. Indeed, with the right support and working arrangements, usually with modest adjustments, they can do so and be valued employees. And I think it was a powerful point that there is a misconception that this would just impact on older people. And in fact, it can impact on people throughout their lives. 1 in 6 people will develop a disability or a long-term health condition, many of which will be within their working age. And this is a common challenge and barrier that people will need to take. And I also welcome the Honourable Member for Newport West, who I'm sure, with her expertise in this area, will be a valued addition to Parliament. And, Sir Graham, the reality on the disability stats, despite the last pre-written speech, is that there are now 947,000 more disabled people in work in the last 5 years. We have taken disability employment from 44.2% to 51.7%. That is a record high. It is for the first time more disabled people in work than not in work. But that isn't enough. We are an ambitious government, and we set out 2 years ago that a further 1 million disabled people will be in work. And in that first 2 years, it's over 400,000 more disabled people in work. We are ahead of schedule, and that is still not enough. Yeah. And we will continue to do everything we can to empower businesses to have the confidence to tackle those barriers and to take advantage of the huge amount of talent that is all too often overlooked. And I don't just preach as a minister, I say this as an employer. Before I became an MP with my own small business that benefited from employing disabled people, from having the confidence to make those small changes, and actually I benefited. And I've been in a series of stakeholder meetings and events today where each and everyone was united in saying that we have to make sure it works for everyone. Now, the majority of the speeches today focused on the Access to Work scheme. And it's right to challenge, and I recognise that. But we must also recognise that 33,800 people were helped last year, up 13%, a record high. And my honourable friend from Moray raised the point about had funding been increased or decreased in this particular area. Now, we don't actually recall specifically, but what I can say, those that listed conditions relating to arms or hands, legs or feet, or back or neck, which we would expect predominantly could be covered in this area, as their primary medical condition, was about 10% of our spend and up 2% on last year. But I think I recognise the broad point that everybody's raised, that we need more people benefiting from the Access to Work scheme, and that particularly more in this area, particularly as technology is playing an increasing part in removing barriers and creating opportunities. And I've seen this on visits, and we heard the great case with the Honourable Member for Lanark and Hamilton East with her own caseworker, and how that she is benefiting from those small changes. And that can be replicated right across. And key here is improving the awareness of access to work. And what we are looking at is improving the awareness in the job centres. So in that initial conversation, where we're taking into account everybody's unique opportunities and challenges, particularly around health, that it is ingrained in all of our frontline staff that this is an option to help unlock barriers. And that goes right to the core of the principle of the joint health and work unit that I had a meeting on earlier, and we recognise just how important that is. We need to work closer with stakeholders to promote to their members that this is something that can be utilised. Working with the GPs and health professionals, making sure that they're aware of the opportunity. On the point of the fit note, that we also, GPs can highlight that there are fluctuating health conditions and that can limit the amount of the work. But I absolutely understand the point, and we are working with medical professionals on what more can be done in that area. Looking at our health and work providers to make sure that they include it, it's embedded in their options. Through the Disability Confidence Scheme, we're at now 12,000 businesses, a record high on there, and we have ambitions to increase that rapidly. And looking at putting additional requirements to the highest level of disability confidence, to perhaps look at signposting from general benefits. If we've identified people with health conditions through disability benefits, perhaps we could signpost people for additional local support. It's not something they have to have, but by providing that information, that could be helpful for people. But the area where I think we can make a real difference, and the Honourable Member for Ellesmere Porton North made a really good point about how can we be sure that businesses have an understanding? Because for many businesses, particularly small and medium-sized businesses, this isn't necessarily a common occurrence. So they do like that confidence. Now, I think there's an opportunity through the Health and Safety Executive, because it is a pretty good given. We're internationally leading on safety as part of the Health and Safety Executive. We have a new Chief Executive that's just been recruited, and I made it very clear to her that the real priority going forward has to now be looking at the health. They are brilliant at engaging with businesses of all sizes. As part of those assessments, within those working environments, that they can identify areas of improvement, that as a one-stop shop can be a portal to signpost for additional support, particularly about the points that were raised about not letting people slip out of work, because it's a darn sight harder to get people back into work than it is to keep them in work in the first place. And I was very interested to talk to my Access to Works team about potential ways that we can help. And initially, I perhaps thought it was just simply just technology, and I was looking at some case studies, and we can't give names for obvious reasons. And in some cases, it is technology. It is sometimes making adjustments to the equipment they use, but also Access to Work will talk to the employer, will suggest perhaps changing the working hours, perhaps having a better recognition that there may be times where they will have to limit the hours, or perhaps even looking to change the roles. And this is incredibly important. If you are in a big employer, they have HR teams, they have personnel teams, we would expect them, as a given, to get this right. But 40% of private sector jobs are in small and medium-sized businesses. And they don't necessarily have bad intentions, but they don't have the confidence or expertise. And I think through organisations like HSE, we can do a lot more. And in conclusion, Sir Graham, I also wish to pay tribute to Versus Arthritis. I am definitely going to be working very closely with them. I'm speaking at their event in July. They are one of our key stakeholders for Access to Work, which goes through line by line how we're doing it, what improvements we need to do. And I have to say that their report, Sir Graham, was very, very proactive and very, very helpful. And I really do genuinely repeat that I was really impressed just how proactive and constructive the speeches were. There is a real cross-party commitment to get this right. It's such an important issue. And I will conclude, Sir Graham, that not for everybody that they are looking for a full-time job, full career. I have met young disabled people who, for them, simply being able to do 1 hour is a life-changing opportunity. Wherever there is a barrier, we as a government are absolutely committed to remove that. We want businesses to have the confidence to take advantage of the huge amounts of talent that I'm afraid all too often is looked over. We are heading in the right direction, but we are ambitious to do more, and I thank each and every one of you for everything you are doing to highlight all of the opportunities these people can take advantage of.